Now let's get some more reaction to the news that the F1 season will start in Bahrain, with the planned season opener in Australia now pushed back until November because of coronavirus restrictions in that country. We can cross live to Sky Sports F1's David Croft. Now, David, lovely to have you. Big changes to the calendar this morning. What's your reaction?
Yeah, my reaction is cancel autumn for anyone who works in Formula One or anyone who wants to follow Formula One. When we resume the summer break, that's 12 races in 16 weeks, with the season finale in Abu Dhabi being pushed back a week, so we finish on the 12th of December. It's a lopsided season. The majority of the races take place in the second half of the season, but that's no real shock, is it? With the global pandemic still affecting each and every country around the world, Liberty would be foolish to put most of the races into the first half of the year. I don't think this is going to be the final calendar as well. I still think there are races at risk that we might end up not going to. Monaco, for instance, Azerbaijan, for instance, both street races, Canada as well, Singapore, where infrastructure has to be built, where I'm sure investment wouldn't want to be necessarily made without a guarantee that the race would go ahead. But it's a lopsided calendar. It's a lot of stress and strain on those who work in Formula One. But for the fans, the important thing is we try and have as many races as we possibly can, because it was one of the highlights of 2020, the fact that we got a full F1 season in of 17 races, albeit rescheduled, and lots of drama and entertainment along the way.
Certainly was. Now, look, Bahrain is the one that's locked in. It's the opening Grand Prix now. Under the lights should be an impressive way to start.
Well, yes, and I don't know why we didn't, or the sport of F1 didn't look at Bahrain as a season opener right from the outset. Without trying to sound too negative towards the organisers of the Australian Grand Prix, they were never going to get that race on in Albert Park at the start of the year. Bahrain was a much more sensible choice. We always get good racing in Bahrain. They are very much advanced in their vaccination programme, in their track and tracing programme as well, so are able to cope better with having F1 located in the Kingdom of Bahrain for a week or so. We'll go testing there as well, and my indications are that the test will be on the 12th, 13th and 14th of March, 2 weeks before the season starts, although that is not confirmed or guaranteed at any stage yet. But it's a much more sensible option. Go to Bahrain and then go to European races after that. China at the moment not on the calendar. I can't see that coming back either.
How about Imola then? We thought that was a special treat just for last season, but it's back. How different a challenge is that going to present in the spring? And
it's going to be really cold.
Go for it.
It's going to be really, really cold in Imola. We had a mild November in Italy, in northern Italy last year. So we had brilliant scenes. It was a gorgeous weekend there, but it's going to be really, really chilly in Imola, akin to the Nürburgring, where we went racing in October. And that'll just be another challenge that the teams will have to overcome. I love Imola as a track. It was great to be going back there last year. I'm glad it's on the calendar as well. There's a race to be confirmed after Imola and before Spain. My understanding is that will be Portugal, another of the tracks that we went to last year, albeit for the first time in Formula One. Portimao should be back on the calendar as well, and back-to-backing with the Spanish Grand Prix, so last weekend of April and the first weekend of May for Portugal and Spain. OK, so David, we talked about how it's going to be a bit of a stress for anyone covering F1, but it's also going to be a bit of a logistical nightmare now for the teams. Triple header across USA, Mexico and Brazil, and then 3 races in 4 weeks to end the season in Australia, Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi. Can they cope? They're going to have to cope. It's as simple as that. If all these races go ahead, they are going to have to cope. In terms of the triple header and logistics, it's easier for the teams if they're flyaway races. The logistical nightmare will probably be Belgium, the Netherlands and Italy, in terms of the teams having to move trucks around Europe and get them from race to race. For Russia, Singapore, Japan, and for Mexico, the USA, or the USA, Mexico and Brazil, that will be freight that will be air freighted to the various tracks. So logistically, that shouldn't be a problem. Fatigue is the thing that I worry about, and I'm sure the teams are looking at that as well, and now looking at ways which they can rotate their crews so that not every single mechanic and engineer has to do every single race. We've got to 23 races in a season. It's about the limit, really, in terms of what you can physically demand and mentally demand of drivers and of mechanics, of engineers, of everyone who works within the team. So I think rotation is the name of the game for the future. If Liberty are going to persist with 23 races a year, which I think they have to do, because they need to make the money that, of course, they would have lost last year when the pandemic really hit the season and races weren't paying as much as they were in the past.
Now, on Lewis Hamilton, we're still waiting to hear whether he's going to sign a new contract at Mercedes. 2 months away, the new season. Could you actually see him quitting the sport?
I can't see Lewis quitting the sport at all. I don't think he wants to quit the sport. I don't think that Mercedes want to see him quit the sport. We've seen contract negotiations go a long way into January and sometimes to February in the past as well in Formula One. I would imagine the chat is about money. It normally is when it comes to contracts, despite both sides trying to play that one down. Lewis Hamilton is now a 7-time world champion and would want to be recompensed for being a 7-time world champion and would want to have a salary that reflects his years of dedication to the sport and his success within it. Mercedes, I'm sure, wouldn't want to be paying Lewis Hamilton every single dollar that he might be demanding at the moment, but they'll get their heads together and they'll sit down and thrash it all out before we open up in Bahrain on the 28th of March. And at least we've got an extra week for them to get those contract negotiations now sorted before the start of the season, now that Australia's been rescheduled.
All very comforting. Appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, David.
Pleasure.